I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you've seen it now. The thing that really amazed me is that here's Arles, this beautiful ancient town, and the ruins of the theater are smack dab in the middle of the town, at the top of the hill, in the middle of the town. That's where they put their theater.
Lisa and Denis, welcome. We're so thrilled you're joining us. So why do an Iliad now during the pandemic, and how is it changing from previous versions that you've done of it?
Well, this actually is connected in a distant way with an Iliad, but it's a whole new thing. An Iliad, obviously, is the piece that we made, I don't know, starting in about 2005, about the Trojan. It was an adaptation of Homer's Iliad, and really a response to the fact that the US had invaded Iraq. So it was really very much about war. We still perform, people do that play around the country, and we actually tour our version with Denis playing the poet around the world. We've had this really fun side hustle, I guess, for a few years now. For 6 years now, we've been on the touring circuit with an Iliad, and we've gone to some really great places, including we've played it in Cairo, we've played it in Shanghai, and so we had been working on a companion piece, a solo for a woman to do, that was called Song of Rome, and kind of picked up the story, the classical story from the end of the Trojan War, but was and followed Aeneas, around back westward until he sort of founds Rome, and with air quotes around it, but really that this companion piece was a chance for us to start talking about empire and government and the way that human beings organize themselves, because we started thinking about how, like 5 years ago, Denis, that's what we wanted to be thinking about,
and
primarily.
The funny thing is that we, that play has been moving forward, but then incidentally, Jim Nicola became interested in pulling out of that play a section called What the Hell is Republic Anyway, which deals only with the republic part of Rome, and not the monarchy, and not the empire, and not the fall of Rome. So now we've become the play. In this weird way, Lisa and I are the major protagonists in a play, kind of about writing a play and about collaboration, but about where we are in this moment. And of course, the play keeps changing because, in the middle of it, the pandemic happened, so we moved it to Zoom, and then Black Lives Matter happened, and we were like, oh my God, we have to respond to this. And now the election is happening. Oh my God, we have to respond to that. And we keep responding in real time to these real crises in our democracy.
So where are we at this moment then?
Well,
let's see. Today, we've discovered that Trump is encouraging his voters to vote twice.
He lied about the pandemic, that he knew it was bad and he'd lied. And, as a friend of mine pointed out, his mother died in a nursing home in April. And had they known, and had he been honest, and had we had a plan, she would be alive today.
So horrible.
You know what I mean? Her death is directly on his doorstep, which is incredible that this man has done this. So where we're at, in a weird way, is where we're at with our play. We're looking at Rome and how Republican Rome slowly fell apart. And we're on that road.
So are you optimistic about November? How are you feeling?
I'm scared.
Yeah.
I wish I could be. I've had moments of optimism. Though I have some reservations, I mostly am excited, particularly about Kamala Harris. I really liked, I'm from California. So I know that you are? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What part?
Oh, southern Orange County. I'm actually flying out tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm from Santa Cruz, Northern California.
Oh my God. Hopefully they're okay from
the fires are incredibly scary.
Woo, okay, this is
I know. But anyway, I've been very, I know, she's a tough ass, and I'm inspired by her. And I actually, when she was running for president, she was kind of my top pick for a while. So like I got hopeful when she was chosen as the vice presidential nominee, and I actually think she would make a great president. So I can see it. You know, I look at her and I go, oh my gosh, that might be our future. But I don't know. You know, I know we shouldn't listen to the polls, but even the polls aren't great right now. They're even. It's basically even. How can that be? So I am pretty nervous about the election.
Well, that's the continuing, I think. In French, you say casse-tête, which means to break the head. It's literally bang your head against the wall in French, and it's baffling to me that there can be anybody in our country who still believes that that man is capable of being in that office. Even if you like his style and you hate the Democrats, honestly, that man is not capable of running the country. He's run it into the ground. And anybody who believes he is, then we're in a lot more trouble than I thought. That's why I'm not optimistic. Because even if Biden wins, we still have that 40% of those people who would have voted for that man. And they're still in our country. And they still carry guns. And they still will show up at rallies. And they will still support regressive policies. And they will still protest against protesters. That's what I find unfathomable. We have people who are protesting police brutality. And we have people protesting the protest. What are you protesting? What are you protesting? When you are against Black Lives Matter, what are you against? I don't get it.
You're against Black people.
Well, it seems obvious to me, but I mean, I just don't get it. And so the fact that this is what our country has come to, that we have people taking the law into their own hands and showing up with weapons, and that's not illegal, is a huge problem. And so I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic about this country at all. I think this country's fault lines have always been there, and I think Trump has made them acceptable, and people are acting on that. And I think Biden, if he's elected, would be amazing, but how is he going to put...
You cut off at the end there, Dennis.
Your Wi-Fi froze for a second. Oh.
Probably just as well. I said,
I mean,
how do you put that awful genie back in the bottle?
I don't know. You know, the thing I kind of assume that, I mean, I think it's true that most people look at where we are in this country right now and they see, I mean, if they're at all interested in you know, ancient history as a model, it's kind of obvious to think of Trump as a sort of terrible emperor, you know, to make parallels between him and Nero fiddling while Rome burns, or even worse emperors, you know, Caligula, the really scary guy. And so, you know, I think the reason that the reason we're trying to focus on the Republic part of Roman history is because of those deeper fault lines that we're observing. Like, yes, Trump is X, Y, and Z. We have a president right now who is leaning us further and further away from a republic and more toward an empire. Now, that's a pattern that happened, you know, in Rome 2,000 years ago. So it's worth looking at, and we're not the only ones. Lots and lots of people are looking at it. But I think we decided that all the structures that were put in place over time, you know, that made the Roman Republic last for 500 years, some of them were things that the Americans borrowed very consciously. This is what we're learning, you know, that it's not accidental that they're similar, that those guys in the room where it happened, you know, I mean, I can't stop picturing, like, now Hamilton guys, you know, we're like bringing out their history books. We're like, what did Cicero say about this?
They knew it.
Yeah. And so the founding principles that make the little machine run and tend toward fairness and tend toward equity and tend toward trying to take care of everybody are they're borrowed from the Romans, and they're in peril now. So just trying to understand a little bit more about what a republic is what this piece is about. And really, we're not experts at all. So what we do is we sort of say, we are two theater people who are a bit panicked about what is about to happen. And we want to expose our, as if we, metaphorically had these piles of books, and we are just rifling through them to try to find, I don't know, a bit of positivity, some humor, an answer, some clarity. Do you want to be with us while we kind of page through all this research? And also, as we sort of, bounce the ball back and forth between each other about what is happening right now.
But also, the thing about, Rome is many things to many people. And what you hear when you hear Rome differs according to each person's experience. And a lot of people hear Rome and they just think of military might, or they hear of Rome and they think of the buildings or whatever. But, that Rome invented law, that Rome, was a democratic republic in some ways, in many ways. And in a stew of other nations which weren't doing that at all is kind of extraordinary. And when you think about the fact that the Romans, they used protests to get what they wanted. So thinking about Black Lives Matter, there was one big period in Roman history where the plebs, meaning the people who weren't patricians, weren't allowed to vote and weren't allowed to be in the Senate. So they withdrew. They left the city and they went somewhere else, and they took all their military might and all their food and all their animals and their wives and went, good luck. And the patricians were like, wait, come back, we need you. They said, well, if we come back, we get to vote. And they went, okay, you get to vote. So you watch in Rome this process by which people acquired rights through protest and through actions. And it's inspirational in that way. And Lisa mentioned that the founding fathers were aware of Rome. There's a play called Cato, which is written by a guy named Addison, and it was written in 1713. It was hugely popular, and George Washington had it performed for his men at Valley Forge in the middle of the winter to inspire them.
And Cato, and who was Cato, Dennis?
And Cato was a Roman senator who in the time of Julius Caesar, fought against Julius Caesar, because Julius Caesar was trying to dismantle the republic and become a dictator and become an autocrat. And Cato fought against that for liberty and freedom. And in fact, the Patrick Henry's cry, give me liberty or give me death, is a plagiarism from Cato. It's taken from
I didn't know that.
Taken from that play, yeah. But the Americans weren't just vaguely aware of Rome. They built this country on Roman foundations and Roman principles.
Let's actually describe the president as, as one of the most horrible emperors. I also started seeing him as like a Greek figure, like an Oedipus, right? Especially knowing what you said right now about the death of his mom. And I wonder for you as artists and just as human beings, is it comforting or just like super depressing that we have had these stories for centuries and centuries and we still don't get them? We keep repeating them.
That, we confront that in the Iliad. That's one of the central themes of an Iliad is basically we have all the evidence. When will mankind change? And I think it's no different. There are progress is made. Obviously, people's life expectancy is longer. We deal with poverty in a different way. We are a more democratic society. Go ahead, Lisa. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just listening to you and thinking. I guess I find it both, Jose, both depressing to think that that humankind doesn't learn, but also I do ultimately think that that we move forward in a very spiral way, like bit by bit. I think that. But then again, if I think about climate change, or like, do I really think we move forward toward racial justice? Yes, a bit, most kind of, but not really. So very slowly. So for me, it's both comforting to know that we've been through this before, and very, very depressing. And it's such a good question. I'm puzzling over it still.
And one of the great things about looking at Rome and America is just to look at not only the differences but the similarities, but the differences. what did Rome do well that we're not doing well? And one of the things that Rome did really well was that Rome did not trust in the individual. They were not an individualized society. They were a collective society, a communal society. They mistrusted the individual so much that in their power, they had two leaders, two consuls who were co-presidents at the same time, who only served for 1 year, and then they got to go. That's what they knew about human nature, what would happen if you allow one man to run things. George Washington was offered to be the king of the US, and he said no. And then he was offered to be president. And then he was offered a second term, and he said no. I don't think I should have a second term. We've lost that idea. But, he was trying to be very Roman in the idea of, he understood the temptation to think that you have all the answers. Let somebody else come up, new energy, new power.
Pro-government. I mean, it really is a pro-government idea.
Very pro-government, right? Yeah. The government way. And, Lisa and I talk a lot about government and government structures. And, I'm very pro-government because the other answer is anarchy. And anarchy kills more people. So finally, do you want to have more people alive or more people dead? Those are your options. If it's going to be anarchy, total anarchy, more people will die because people will form their own mini governments. They just will. People collect themselves. They organize themselves. They pick a leader and they make rules. That's what happens. Who's your favorite Roman writer?
Well, I guess I'd say...
Sallust, Ovid, Suetonius, Cato the Elder, Cato the Younger.
See the Mount Vesuvius one?
I don't think so. It was the Pliny's. Pliny the Younger, Pliny the Elder. A real lack of imagination when it came to names, has to be said.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're telling us, Lisa, that you'll be acting in the piece?
Yeah. Well, it's not a traditional play. I don't actually think it's right to call what we're doing now for New York Theater Workshop a play. What the Hell is a Republic anyway is more of an experiment, and it's very meta theatrical, if you can even say theater in the context. I mean, it's a digital project. Yeah, the only characters are Denis and me. We are playing ourselves. We are in it. I mean, and we. I've never been so nervous as I was. We worked on this with Dartmouth. New York Theater Workshop normally up in August goes up to Dartmouth to workshop stuff. So we did that, but virtually, and we did a performance for up there as part of the Hop season. And the piece is really structured as a conversation that Denis and I are having, and a kind of town meeting, because we interact with the audience. The main thing, what makes it most experimental, other than the fact that I am not an actor, and I'm just being myself, and that the piece is semi-scripted, but a lot of it is improvised, is that we really interact with the audience. So the piece is a Zoom meeting between Denis and I and an audience of 100 people. And we ask the people to come in and do certain things with us, and then, and then turn off their video and mute themselves and listen. But the thing that's the most fun and the craziest is this unknown of us asking questions of that audience and asking them to do certain things with us, and basically trying to run a meeting of 100 people, of 100 strangers, and get a sense of them.
And in that, it reflects the experiment that is democracy and government, because, we have an opportunity with Zoom to have an audience come from not just New York City, not just come from Brooklyn and the Upper West Side. We can have an audience come from Texas, from places that don't normally get access to, this kind of theater. People who don't agree with us, people who may have a very different point of view, and we're really excited by that idea. That to me would be really interesting.
Is it harder to play a character or to play yourself?
I've done it before. It's always a little weird. I mean, here's the funny thing. My character version of me is always a little bit more of an asshole for some reason. I don't know why that happens.
I don't know that. At what point during the quarantine and the chaos of the pandemic did you go, okay, it's time to create? Because I know that for the first month or so, I barely wanted to leave my couch and like stop eating ice cream and watching Sex and the City reruns.
Well, we had actually started talking about doing this for New York Theater Workshop prior to like even before January. But in January, we were seriously talking about doing it live on stage, and it was more about the coming election than anything else. And Dennis, I don't know if you've said this already, but Dennis lives in Paris now. And so he and I work this way, meaning using Zoom, or we used to use Skype back in the day. This is how we work. And so we thought even then that there would be a virtual or digital element to it, because we weren't sure. Maybe I would be sitting on the stage on East 4th Street, and Dennis would be in a theater in Paris or something like that. So there was a natural, when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden this is the only way all of us are communicating, it sort of seemed obvious that we could keep working on it. But I will say personally for myself, I don't know, I'm not saying this is a good thing, because but I clutched immediately, like literally that weekend after all the theaters closed. I started going, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to have this project with this friend. I'm going to meet that person Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2 to 3. I'm going to talk to Dennis on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 4. Like my only response to the unknown was to go into major scheduling. And I'm not proud of that. And now, like 6 months into it, I actually I feel like I missed an opportunity to simply exhale and to just be. And I actually really admire people like you, Jose, who went, you know what, I do not know. And I'm just gonna just sit in that for a while. But that's not me. I need projects, I need to be busy to an extreme that can be unhealthy.
You're not really an Aquarius. You should have been born a Capricorn like me. You're not. You're not.
Oh my goodness. So I threw so many balls in the air back in March and April, like ideas, but why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? But now that they're actually coming to fruition, which I didn't think they would, and they've stacked up on me. So I am like doing too many projects right now.
Do you mind if I ask you guys a question?
Of course.
This is back to the topic of government and the election and all that. I had a very disturbing but enlightening conversation with my 30-year-old cousin, who said that he sees no difference between the two parties, that he sees that they're one party, the party of money. I'm just curious for your reaction to that.
I have complicated, no, that's insane. First of all, that's insane. But I have complicated, complex thoughts because I'm an immigrant. I can't even vote right now. Like I have like almost like no rights in this country right now. Mm. And one of the reasons why I ended up moving to America was because in 2009, there was a Democratic backed military coup in my home country. So I ended up here, and then there's a Republican president telling me to go back to where Obama and Clinton helped stabilize. So I have, but no, that's insane. Like, no. Like, if I could vote, I would, vote. I would be wearing Biden, Harris, stuff everywhere. Like, no, it's just, it's so interesting because, like, even, every time I hear the word republic and I see my peers thinking about republic, they probably imagine some, like, Star Wars thing where, like, we must save the republic and save, send, what are the Star Wars flying things called? I don't know. But that, it feels like very detached, very surreal. But I keep reminding people here, that voting is both duty and also privilege. And that's the one thing that I want everyone, since I can't vote, I tell them, please vote for me.
Amazing.
It makes me really sad because as a journalist and as someone who like I just consume information and I want to be informed, and it really saddens me to know that educated people can be that misinformed, and how the information system in our society is just, it's broken, and we've all gone off into our own factions where we only consume the information that we consider safe for us to consume. And so I think if you are an avid reader of the news, and you have media literacy, and you know that, and you know about the different positions of the parties and the politicians, like, you cannot say that because it is unequivocally untrue. But there are people who think that. And so what I've been struggling with is just like, how do you convince people to believe in a system that they think is flawed?
And it is flawed because it's run by human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So every institution that has people in it, like the UN, I love the UN. Of course, the UN is flawed because it's run by human beings, and it's a political organization. So you have political considerations. Every decision is political. Of course it is. Of course it's flawed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also very sad because like people see elections happening once, and it's like the presidential, like the general election, and that's it. But I keep telling people, sure, like Democrats have lobbyists and like all those old guard figures. But if you refuse to vote for the Democratic platform, you're erasing AOC, Ilhan Omar, all those incredible women of color who are bringing the change. And obviously they can't all run for president at once. And people forget that, you mentioned that progress was a spiral, and it's so slow. It's a very slow spiral.
Oh.
So I'm like, if you don't vote for Biden and Harris, you are denying AOC and Presley and all these incredible women the opportunity to even grow as politicians and to actually make the change that we want.
Yeah. That is so well put. And I also think that is an example. You just gave 3 great examples of why I do feel that there is progress. Right. Because those people are in our, they are representing.
And they educate by their very existence. They educate their existence tells people a story that they may not have known before.
Right, and they're inspiring thinkers, and they have a vision for the future. So that coil, it's like, boy, it's tight, that coil toward progress. But
I wonder, since the 2 of you were ahead in the collaborating virtually over Skype or Zoom, before everyone else in theater got into it, what are some of the things that you would like to bring from this practice of collaborating digitally to when people, I hope, fingers crossed someday soon, are allowed to meet again and collaborate together?
I mean, to me, the great opportunity is to erase time and distance. So, Lisa and I are really consistent. We work all the time. We talk at least 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes for hours we work together. I'm in Paris. I have a son. So I put my son down to bed. I read him a story at night at 10:30 or 11 and put him to bed, and then get out of bed with him, and I meet Lisa online. That's amazing that we can do it. Collaboration doesn't have to be in the same city. And I love this idea that we can continue to invite other people to witness these collaborations. Because if you don't get to New York Theater Workshop on West 4th Street, you're not going to see this piece. Well, now you can. Anybody can subscribe. Anybody for $10 a month can join New York Theater Workshop season anywhere and see it. So, the trans kid in Mississippi who has no support around them has an opportunity digitally to not be alone, to find a community, to find other people that they can talk to. That's a huge gift of this technology.
And I'm wondering, because Jose and I have had a lot of conversations back and forth about like what makes theater now in the age of Zoom, and what makes it different from like film and TV. And so like, what are your opinions about like how theater can still be itself, but done over a screen?
Well, for me, I think it centers on the idea of what is live. because I think Dennis and I talk about this all the time. The thing about, one of the primary things about theater, beyond this ancient idea, we have to gather in a space together. Because as a director, I've talked about that for decades, and this is what makes theater beautiful. We gather in a space together, just like people have been doing for centuries, and we have to be together. But I do now know that there are other ways for us to gather in a space together, like what Dennis is talking about. We are gathered. The four of us are gathered in a space together. We're listening to each other, and we're thinking, and we're having a conversation. So that's gathering in a space together. But what theater does that film and television doesn't do is it is live in a moment. So that moment could be, like, for me, it's whatever, 10:30 in the morning. For Dennis, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I don't even know where you guys are. You might be in a different time zone. You could be. But this moment that we're in is the same, and anything could happen. Something could blurt out of my mouth. Dennis could get up and he could suddenly need to leave, and we wouldn't know why. We could ask a question of you guys, and that might change the nature of the conversation. All those things are live. So I don't think I mean that it has to be literally a live Zoom thing, but there's something about the presence of liveness that you have to capture, even if you are recording it. If you're, the only other project in this New York Theater Workshop series, the Instigator series, that I've been able to glance at yet is seeing David Cale and Dale Orlando Smith work on their piece a little bit, because they were also up at Dartmouth. And we didn't, if we had really been in Dartmouth, we'd be having meals with them, we'd be seeing them on the path, so we didn't get any of that. But I did sit in on their presentation, and there's David in his living room, and there's Dale in her living room, and they're alternating reading these brand new monologues. And even though it wasn't live, we were live, because that's what we're doing. We're talking to an audience, but they were a recorded, but it still felt like it had captured a kind of unpracticed moment or something, where they were, it felt unfiltered. I don't know. What is liveness? What is liveness is the question. That's really interesting.
It's the audience, and Lisa and I talk a lot about the audience, and I think for an audience, being live means you are seen and you are heard. Mm-hmm. So if we're in a comedy in New York, your laughter is part of the show, and the actors look at you.
Dennis
look at you to try to get a laugh.
Dennis, you froze in such an interesting moment. You froze in this, like, look at you.
I said
it was
really hammy act. We'll look out to the audience for a laugh, to push that laugh line. You know what I mean? The give a take, like, can you believe it? That's you being seen. So Lisa and I, in our evolution of this piece, are very concerned with the audience being seen and heard. Because what is the difference then? What if they're not seen, if they're just blank, and Lisa and I are on two talking heads, we can't feel them, and we need to feel them.
Yeah, I even miss the coughs these days when I'm watching theater in my bedroom. Like, I need someone to cough and burp next to me.
Right, like Dennis, like you touched on like what I really love about theater, which is the fact that I'm accountable to the people on stage as well as an audience member, and I have to focus. And I can't look at my phone. I can't be distracted by anything else. Like, I have to be present in the moment. Which, how often can we be present in our modern life? And so, just backstage at What Is a Republic Anyway? So, are y'all going to just look at 100 tiny little Zoom screens on your end?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, what we're at least in the first episode, the one that we've practiced a bit up at Dartmouth, we ask people to enter and then leave. We're moving the audience. So in a way, I suppose it's more like, it isn't like Sleep No More, but it moves the audience from room to room. So we might say, okay, we're going to put you in the quote unquote green room now. And, we won't see you right now, but then, hey, everybody, can you turn on your video? And up come like a couple pages worth of faces. And and then we'll have an interaction, and then we'll say, okay, turn your video off, and back they'll go to the green room. And you know, Janice and I took part in this, the Orchard Project, you know, all their labs were digital this summer. All their workshops were digital. They did a lab called the Liveness Lab that Dennis and I took part in. And the most interesting thing about it was that they decided to have absolutely everybody who applied would do it, because there wasn't scarcity anymore. So 130, mostly theater artists, trying to think about these very things that we're talking about now, were all part of this. And we knew some of these people, we didn't know others. And just to try to be part of a Zoom community that's that big was exciting and also frustrating. And we'd be put into breakout rooms, kind of chosen somewhat randomly, and then we'd be pulled back into a big room. And the experience of doing that felt pretty fun. So I think in part we would like to give the audience for this piece that same experience.
So it sounds like FAFU, and you can turn the lights on and off.
FAFU, yes. Yeah. That's a better example than Sleep No More. Yeah.
I love it. This is the time of the interview. Oh, wow, it's 10:43, where you plug everything you want us to see, including the New York Theater Workshop project and everything you have going on streaming or in the future of books. This is your chance to talk about everything you have right now.
Should we say more about the New York Theater Workshop and what that is? We probably should, right? Let's start there. So as part of New York Theater Workshop's season of instigation, or I'm not even sure what they call it, instigators, making work for the digital platform, we are putting this piece, What the Hell is a Republic Anyway, on for 4 episodes, plus a 5th, all building toward the election on November 3rd. So our first episode will air on September 22nd in the early evening. I'm not sure exactly what time, but the 22nd. Then 2 weeks later, we'll do episode 2. I think that's on October 6th. And then the 3rd episode is 2 weeks later on the
October
22nd, I think. No, look at the calendar. And the 4th episode is the night before the election, November 2nd, Monday, November 2nd. Oh yes, Dennis, you're right. The 3rd episode is the 20th of August. So it's all Tuesdays, 3 Tuesdays, and then a Monday. And then we're going to do 2 weeks after the election. That's the kind of, let's gather together with the audience we've built and talk about what has happened. Either way, we're going to do that. So,
and the great thing about this piece is that you're able to see it. If you can't come live, you'll be able to see it afterwards. So you can catch up. You can watch it streaming. But what we say is, more than any other thing, the reason you want to be live on this one is that you're going to be in it. So you want to be in it. You don't want to be watching it later and go, I can't be in it.
Exactly. You want to be one of those little boxes.
Yeah.
I am also at the same time working on a radio play version of It Can't Happen Here, adapted from the Sinclair Lewis novel. This is a project that I actually directed 4 years ago at about this time at Berkeley Rep. And we decided very last minute that we would put it together as a large-scale radio project. So Berkeley Rep is producing it, but it's going to go out to theaters across the country, just like it did back during the WPA in 1936. So I am actually in the middle of rehearsing and starting to record that now as well. So It Can't Happen Here is also a very political work of art about what would happen if a ridiculous, clownish, fascistic-leaning person was elected as president of the United States. And you know, fascism comes to the United States in that story, which is set in 1935 and was inspired by the candidacy of Huey Long and also Sinclair Lewis seeing what was happening in Europe at the time and being worried about it.
So it can happen here.
Well, now we know it can.
Now we know it can.
Yeah, and it can get worse. Like, we think this is pretty bad, but it can get worse.
I am doing a bunch of just little teeny things on the side, you know, always a little bunch of side hustles. I was in American Gods, which we shot last year in Canada, and that's going to be coming out soon. I think I did 4 episodes of that, and that was pretty fun. And then I'm in I'm in New York, in London right now, doing this TV series for HBO called The Nevers. And so I shot 5 episodes, now I'm shooting my 6th episode. That won't be on until next year, but it's Joss Whedon, it's pretty great. And I'm writing a novel about the eventual breakup of the United States. And I've written my first draft, and I'm sending it out to my literary agent, and I'm trying to find a publisher, publish my novel. I had pitched it as a TV series, and everybody loved the idea, but nobody would buy it because it's too scary. And so I was like, I'm going to write the novel. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I hope to get the novel written, published, and then somebody will adapt it for TV. I'll be right back where I started from.
It's timely now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the problem is that things that I've written in the novel are already coming true. And I'm like, I can't stay ahead of history. I wrote a character in the novel, this kind of awful woman named Karen, I wrote this a few years ago, who's a figure who was like, just that kind of awful, like, know-it-all. And I was like, oh my God, Karen, it's coming true. So I can't stay ahead of reality fast enough.
Are you keeping her name Karen?
Yeah, they already wrote it, yeah, but you know.
I mean, if that means you have prophetic powers, then please write a happy ending for the Republic then.
Yes, Jose.
Yes, okay, thank you. Good note.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you both so much. This has been really lovely. And next time we meet, I hope there's no danger. We don't have to talk about Star Wars and republics falling apart and empires crashing and all of that. Rather, I hope we're all celebrating near stage. Preferably.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I hope the 2 November shows after the election, it'll be happy shows.
So do we. Oh my gosh. Yes,
That's
fingers
great.
Crossed.
Thank you both for having us.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Lisa, and au revoir, Dennis.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
Goodbye, you both.